This is why you're not improving at golf. Club face control, which is determined by your wrist angle. So with the help of this HackMotion sensor, we're going to dive into why you're not improving and what we can do to fix it. So in the golf swing, the club face is king, and you've probably heard that before. And in reaction to what the club face is doing, your body will adjust accordingly. So for example, in a typical high handicapper's golf swing, what I typically see with this lead wrist angle is it looks something like this. They'll go to the top and the club will be right across the line. This lead wrist will be severely cupped or extended like this, and that will put your club face open. And what happens from there, typically, you'll come down steep. You'll cut across the ball, hit big slices or big pulls, and you'll get into all sorts of problems on the golf course. So the wrist angles, which will determine what your club face is doing at impact, your body reacts as a result. It's not a case of your swing fault is over the top. Your only reason you're coming over the top, if you're someone that does this, the only reason you're doing that is because you've got an open face, you've got a very cupped lead wrist, likely at the top of your backswing, and as a result, you're being forced to come across like that to try and straighten up the shot. That's extremely important to understand. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you're someone that hooks the ball too much, you're likely got too strong a grip and you've got a very shut face, and you're getting forced to come more from the inside to allow from that really shut face. So there's two different sides of the equation there, but the important thing to remember is the club face is king, and your body will adjust or react accordingly to how that club face is. Whenever I talk about this cupped lead wrist at the top of the backswing, I pretty much always get a comment, what about Bubba Watson, what about Fred Couples, what about Jack Nicklaus? Because all these guys are like this at the top of their backswing, and they're all obviously major winners, fantastic players, but you've got to remember there's always exceptions to the rules, and these guys, and there's probably others out there, they've been playing the game of golf for so many years, they've trained themselves to be able to come from here and shallow the club and square it up before impact. They've practiced for 4, 6, 8 hours a day training themselves to perfect that move. Now, for the average golfer, like for you and me, it is far easier. I'm going to show you some data with this HackMotion in just a second. Far easier to shallow the club and square up that club face at impact if you get that lead wrist a lot flatter like that at the top. Far easier, and I'm all about making the game of golf easy. If you can get it flatter at the top, far easier to shallow, far easier to square the club face in impact. So I'm not saying having a little bit of cupping is bad, but too much I definitely wouldn't recommend unless you've got the time to practice for hours on end and perfect a shallowing move at impact. So just something for you to think about. Now, if you look at this video of Tommy Fleetwood here, you'll see a vast difference to that example I showed earlier. So from what he does during his backswing, he takes the club up to the top, and you'll just see how flat that lead wrist of his is. It's very flat, and as he starts to transition down, he's squaring up that club face, and he's coming through to impact and striking the ball solid and through. So a vast difference between having a flat lead wrist versus a cup lead wrist will make a massive difference in your ball striking. Now, I want to show you some data on this HackMotion sensor. Now, I don't want you to get caught up in the numbers here, but I just want to show you so you've got an awareness of what your wrists are doing and how it affects the club face. So I'm going to get into what's called a pre-impact position. Now, you'll see how much the wrists move, and this is an important concept. I want you to understand in your golf swing, the wrists move a heck of a lot. They're always moving. So we don't want them moving too greater, I guess, variance from setup to the top. And I'll show you that in just a second. So you can see here at setup, actually I'll go to that pre-delivery position that I talked about. You'll see here, this in a pre-delivery position would be a fairly open club face about there. You can see there, it's got a positive number, pretty much close to level. In good players' golf swings, you can see that toes up to the sky. In good players' golf swings, they'll be more like this. You can see it's changed to negative 20 something. Instead of being a positive or level, that lead wrist has gone to a negative there. This is what a lot of good players do. Now this will change through the clubs between your driver and your woods. It'll be roughly the same, but the numbers will be slightly different. So you can see there we've got an open there, and as we close it, you can see how much that changes. And then through to impact like that. I'll just show from this angle here. So this is the open spot here. And this is a more squarer position, which is what you're after pre-impact. So maybe even this angle will show it. So this is open, and this is a lot squarer position pre-impact. This is what a lot of the good players do. And then from there, they're coming through to impact like that. So we can use this hack motion to give you some great data to improve your wrist angles during your golf swing. So I'll show you with the backswing. Now, I normally set up with my hands pretty much just in front of the ball. That's normally the way I like to do it, just in front of the club head, I should say there. That's roughly for me. So if that's about plus 27. Again, don't get hung up on these numbers because yours will likely be completely different. Plus 27. So when I make my backswing, you can see there it's changed to plus 1, 0, plus 2. So all that means is that my lead wrist angle, it's gone from here slightly to that at top of the golf swing. I've kept it fairly flat and even bowed it slightly. I haven't done this, okay? I haven't done this. And the reason why, if I'm set up like here, if you were to do this, you can see how that number jumps up. I've got that lead wrist severely cupped. I've opened the face. This is opening the face with this cupped lead wrist like that. So something for you to be aware of, and depending on what your tendencies are, whether you're a slicer or a hooker, if you're a slicer, you want to be sure that number is getting lower, which means your lead wrist is remaining flat. It's just something important just to remember. Now, when you're coming down, you're wanting that number to come down even further and even be in a negative, especially with your irons, but it'd be pretty much across your bag. You don't want to be adding loft to the club. So from this angle here, it'll be here, and then it gets to negative at impact because we're de-lofting the club and we're getting that club face squarer, okay? You can see there I'm getting that club face squarer, the hands forward. We don't want to be doing this, scooping, and you can see how the differences on the numbers there change. It goes right to a positive. We don't want to be adding loft onto the golf ball. If I'm to hit a shot like this, if I start off at plus 28, and I do a really scoopy shot like that, impact there, I'm a plus 12. So I've really maintained a lot of the loft on the club instead of de-lofting it, which is how you really smash your iron shots. I've done the opposite. But if I was to do what a decent swing should be like and actually de-loft it, which is getting more like this, square a club face and de-lofting it at impact, have a look at the difference. And you can see there we're a minus 36, and all that means is that I've squared up the club face, got my hands in front of the ball, and I've compressed down on it nicely. So depending on what your swing tendencies are, that's going to determine how you move your wrist angle. So if you're someone that slices it, you're more likely more like this at the top of your backswing. You need to work on getting those wrist angles a lot squarer, even a little bit bowed. If you're someone that hooks the golf ball, you're probably too much bowed in like this at the top of your backswing. You probably need to work on doing this. So for you slicers out there, let's start with that. Here's a great drill you can practice as you get to the top of your backswing. I want you to work on, instead of this, that lead wrist very cupped, for you, what you're going to need to work on is getting a lot flatter there. And a great drill for this is doing what's called a motorcycle drill. So all that means is you're going to get here. As you come down, you're just going to twist the wrist like that. Just bows them a little bit. You can see the difference it's making in my wrist angles. And then you're going to come through like that. And that will square up your club face, getting rid of that slice, no more over the top. You'll shallow it. It'll look like this, nice and slow. There and there. And that's what you need to practice to square up your club face and not slice the golf ball. So those motorcycle drills, it will feel strange. If you've never done this before with your wrist angles, it will feel strange, but that's a good thing. That means you're trying a new movement pattern and you'll be able to square it up much easier. Now, if you're someone that hooks the golf ball, you're just the opposite. You might be doing this too much. You're too bowed. You're way too bowed here at the top here. You need to probably feel the exact opposite. You need to feel like as you start your downswing, you get a little bit of cupping. Okay, so you're not coming too far from the inside. You need to feel like you're just coming through on a nice smoother plane, a little bit more cupping in your downswing. It's a lesser problem, particularly for most of the high handicap players. Most of them are generally very cupped up here, but there are some people that do it differently. So for you, think less like that and just think a lot flatter wrist at the top there, even a little bit of cupping if you have to. So pre-impact, you'll be more toe up to the sky, whereas you slicers, pre-impact, you want to feel like you're more like that, okay? And that's a much better spot to be in. Now with your driver and your longer clubs, same concept, only because there's less loft on these clubs, you probably need to do a little bit more twisting to square up that face because there's a lot less loft through to impact there. Same with your hybrids or your 3 woods and 5 woods. You're still going to have to do the same concept, squaring that face with that lead wrist, getting it more bowed or flat at the top. If you're a slicer, if you're a hooker, you'll need to get it a little bit flatter, a tiny bit more cupping through to impact. Leave a comment below if you have any questions about this video, anything that didn't make sense. Maybe it was something about the hack motion, you want to know more details about it. Maybe it was something more about the wrist angles that didn't quite make sense. Leave a comment below, I will get back to you. You definitely want to consider looking at getting one of these hack motion sensors because this will show you and it will give you instant feedback on what your wrist angles are doing. So it's a tremendous help to improve your golf swing. If you check out down below in the description, there'll be a code there for free shipping, so make sure you check that out. I've got an important video for you coming up next. This one talks about how to stop standing up in the downswing. So when you get the right wrist angles and you stop standing up, you're going to play some fantastic golf. So make sure you watch that video. It's coming up.